bit about Nimesh. Nimesh is a Chief Growth Officer for EMEA and APAC for WNS. He's a turnaround executive with expertise in outsourcing and has led digital transformation across industry sectors and turning around businesses. Multiple years of experience as an entrepreneurial leader with diverse global experience in P&L management, shaping cross-border mega transactions and strategic alliances. He has excellent track record of helping companies realize their growth and valuation targets. So, welcome Nimesh to this roundtable. Our guests are looking forward to your inputs today, and I think they're looking forward to your insights as well on leading some of these transformation deals. Okay, so I also have with me today our next panelist, Kalol, and Kalol heads strategy and so Kalol brings in he's the director for sales strategy, planning and enablement at Dell Technologies for APJ. Kalol brings in a very unique blend of customer insight, strong sales alignment, a broad understanding of Dell Technologies' global business strategy, and a passion for people and innovation. In his current role in Dell Technologies, he's focused on ensuring strong collaboration between the various teams, developing go-to-market programs, and helping strategic customers in their journey towards digital transformation. He's also associated with talent transformation of sales teams in various geographies across Asia Pacific and Japan. Kalol has been with Dell Technologies for almost 5.5 years and has decades of experience in technology, sales, consulting, services, strategy, and marketing. Prior to joining Dell Technologies, he was the managing director for a company called CSG International for 5 years, and he also has spent considerable time with companies like HP, Compaq, IBM. He also represents industry and organizations in various forums like NASSCOM, CII, MATE to propagate strong solution stories as well as point of organization on various industry developments. So welcome Kalol to this conversation, and I look forward to having your insights and ideas as well in terms of how does one lead these transformative deals, and especially when you need to sell proactively.
Thank you, Vivek.
Okay, so I would start the conversation by saying that I think what we're seeing today in terms of opportunities have been unprecedented. So one of the nice things which COVID did to us is in terms of speeding the digital transformation, and this is for all organizations across sectors and various regions. And this led to opportunities emerging for everyone as a part of ecosystem. So while everyone is seeing an unprecedented upsurge in business, but in real terms, there are only a few who are able to take advantage in a way where they're able to take advantage and in a full potential, the others who have not been able to take advantage of it, they are able to get limited benefits of these spin-offs from the entire transformation exercise. So I think the question which I want to start with is first to Nimesh. Nimesh, since you've been leading these deals and you've been part of large transformative deals, what is your view what makes selling digital transformation deals so difficult for sales teams? Also, are there differences and nuances for the kind of the services whether your organization provides or Kalol organization provides, and what has been your experience and insights on this? How do you see them differently?
It's a very good question because given it's very relevant at this current stage. The thing is, first of all, one has to understand the reality. And I read the chat. A lot of our esteemed guests, they gave a lot of views which were absolutely bang on. First of all, you have to take a step back. You have to take a step back in terms of understanding why is digital transformation for our partners and clients so difficult. Typically, they will have very outdated organizational structures. inefficient workflows, and rigid leadership styles that can impede the success, even if a sales organization or a services organization like ourselves are geared fully towards making it successful for them. They have to be ready internally with the change management, with the complex software and technology myriad which they have, driving adoption of new tools and processes, evolution of customer needs, and of course, a lack of coherent digital transformation strategy across the organization. It does exist in most cases in silos. And then subsequent to that is the lack of proper IT skills to implement that. And that's the reason why probably about 80% of the transformation, digital transformation journeys fail, right? It's a well-documented fact in terms of why they fail, we know very well. Now, coming from that, we still have to evangelize. We still have to make sure that as a services organization, our sales team is geared towards going out and positioning the digital organization, transformation of digitally transforming the customer organization and what benefits and values it brings. Now, there's no real secret in terms of how this has to be done. First of all, it begins with changing how you sell. That's the only way to evolve your organization so it drives meaningful, positive change quickly enough. Transforming your sales organization, our sales process, so that more products are accessible through digital channels. By products, I mean the elements which goes into creating a solution and service which enables our clients to digitally transform themselves. So the sales folks need to be aware of the products which are accessible through digital channels. In fact, that's what our customers are expecting now. I mean, given the fact that businesses have no option but to embrace the world of e-commerce and digital selling and things like those, and given the fact, Vivek, you correctly pointed out that COVID-19 has unshackled business to commit wholeheartedly to digital transformation with a sales focus on it, the trend has sped up because neither the buyer nor the seller has a choice, as I mentioned just now. You ignore your customers' behavior at your peril, and what customers want and expect from your vendors has completely changed. In the last 3-4 years, especially, it has completely changed. I'll give us a very small example over here. We have been working with a very large OTA for about 4 years now. And during the pandemic, we had a series of course, online meetings with them. It's a Europe-based organization. And one of the key things they wanted to do was for us to come in and completely digitally transform all their processes, right from finance and accounting to customer journey management to CX, everything, because their customers were forcing them to digitally transact with them, and they were not yet ready. So we went through the entire journey of, first of all, educating them what they need to do internally in terms of upgrading their IT technology, change management, etc., etc. And in recent years, but we should not take the eye of the ball in terms of why the projects have failed, because that gives you a learning in terms of how you should transform. And in recent years, countless transformation projects have failed because brands have targeted the supposed easy stuff. Sales guys would want to go and sell the easy stuff. It answers your second part of the question in terms of, correct? And bolting on tech to existing infrastructure, for instance, is not the answer. It's not an answer to help digitally transform. That minimal tinkering with tech doesn't generate a great deal of business value. And if it's not fully integrated, it doesn't really drive the right business outcome. Ultimately, digital transformation has the most positive impact when you can meet your customers and provide them with a seamless buying experience. We all know technology helps business operate faster and in more agile and responsive way. Those who put effort into the sales part of the organization, where the rubber meets the road, and facilitate faster transformation. Look, going back to my previous example, it's a virtuous cycle. Customers are happier, business grows, and achieves more effective alignment with the organization. Not the least because it attracts the company-wide buy-in and support, and it's all about making customers happier and increasing sales. And the customer also start thinking, oh, that sales guy who used to be a pain seems to be a lot more smarter now, because now he has answers at his fingertip, right? Because sales is the most difficult part of any, or the change management in sales is the most difficult part of any organization. the sales guy has to meet their quota. They have to go on and get numbers for them. And for all the right reasons, they will position and sell whatever they can sell quickly and make make the revenue numbers meet. But having said that, given the fact that it has all changed now, and tech and AI and analytics has completely taken over the ways of selling, I think it's a very welcome change for the sales guys to completely transform their way of thinking and drive business outcome with client rather than just focusing on in silos. But for that, the organization also needs to change.
Yeah, I think, and that gets us to a point. There are too many things which sort of move for an organization who's wanting to take that journey of digital transformation, and I think, to my mind, the risk minimization as a strategy needs to be deployed far earlier than the later part of it. That's my understanding, a bit I understand. Okay, great. So we also have Jagdish who has joined in from his busy schedule. Thanks, Jagdish, for taking out time. It's lovely to have you here. So just for people who do not know Jagdish, Jagdish drives new growth for Tech Mahindra. He has been the CEO for a company called Canvas, and almost for 25 years of his career, he has played many roles across sales, business development, and large deals. In fact, he's opened up new markets for TechM in North America, UK, Middle East. So he gets an amazing experience of working across the world. He's also an executive council member of NASSCOM, and I don't need to tell everyone what NASSCOM is about. And he serves on board of Comviva. Jagdish was also very, very actively involved in building up the ecosystem around startups and promoting skill development across multiple organizations like CII, National Committee on Skill Development and Livelihood, and incubator in IIT Mumbai, and also he also mentors certain startups in Silicon Valley. So he's one of the most sought out speakers in the leadership circles in India and internationally. So welcome, Jagdish. We started the conversation because we thought that it will be prudent on our part not to keep our viewers waiting for us. So I come to you, maybe first let me go to Kalol, and then we'll ask the same question possibly to you and your view on it. So Kalol, what would be your view on it, that how do organizations actually drive these selling of these deals very proactively, and is it different because the kind of services what WNS provides versus what you would provide are different while you're part of the same ecosystem. So is there a nuanced difference in selling the kind of services you would provide to your customers?
I think Dinesh touched on a point which said that adding technology to current processes does not make it digital. I think that is the key word, because we have seen from our experience and from a Dell Technologies point of view, what we have done is we have categorized the selling process into two parts. One, we call it the volume or the market driven sales, which happens on a regular basis. Customer wants something, you go quickly fulfill that and move on to the next one, right? So more of a volume play. And then we have the enterprise play, which is consisting of identifying the customer pain points, getting into details of what exactly they want to achieve, rather than looking at products and solutions. Look at the outcome, what the customer wants to achieve and what the customer wants to derive in terms of their customers and how they are engaging with their ecosystem. That's quite an involved process. So if we can actually transform, and that's part of my job actually, if we can transform the sellers from selling just boxes, products and solutions in the Dell Technologies family to go out and become the trusted advisor and consultant to the customer, and make sure that with partners, we can bring in the right fit of products and solutions which will provide that outcome. That is the difference I'm seeing in the market today, right? So there's a question on, there's a comment in the chat, I think Sumit is asking, do you think new customer acquisition in the B2B, especially solutions that need more physical selling, is enabled through digital? Is selling really happening through and through? Of course, that's a good point, and Sumit, and that's where we have for the volume part also, we have introduced what is known as Dell Premier Online. So basically, what the customer can do is go to Dell.com, configure, and Premium Online is for premium customers. They have been given a specific website to go and configure the solutions online, and without any physical intervention, their solution gets delivered, and that is picking up speed actually. So we have seen that customers have also evolved. Today, nobody's asking about speeds and feeds. What's the speed of your hard disk drives here, or what is the current processor you're using? Yes, processors, sometimes customers do ask for it, whether it's Intel, AMD, or whatever. But you no longer face questions on speeds and feeds. It's more about outcomes, and that is where, if the customer is good enough to configure themselves the solution, then we have this Premier Online, and we give it to a lot of companies, and a lot of companies are utilizing that. So without any physical intervention, the customer actually orders online. That goes to our supply chain, which is a world-renowned supply chain, and there are Harvard Business Review papers on that, on the supply chain part of it. And especially when there's a crisis of chips and things going on, it goes online and it actually gets configured in the factory and shipped to the customer without any human intervention, because the cost and the pricing part of it is already predetermined with those Premier Online customers, that this is the type of pricing you will get, this is the type of discounting you will get. Having said that, yes, there are salespeople involved in the process in terms of first initiating those, but slowly we are seeing that the entire involvement of sales is coming down as we are moving online. So yes, digital selling is happening through and through, Sumit, and that's the reality. But if you ask me what is the uptake, well, it's not as we expected. It's quite low right now, but a lot of propagation is happening with the sales team, with marketing and everyone. And I'm sure very soon we are going to see that change moving dramatically in the online selling mode. So that's something which we are seeing, Vivek, and I'll talk more about the CAPEX versus OPEX later on as we move forward.
I think I really find value in what you said, Kalol, that it's the end outcome which sellers have to look, rather than just saying that, okay, and I think that's the point which even Nimesh got in, saying that do not just look at silos, see that what's the outcome we need to deliver to their clients, or what they need to deliver to their clients, and then look backward, saying that what parts of ecosystem could I provide, and could I also leverage some other partners in the ecosystem to deliver that value in the client. Thank you for your inputs there. Jagdish, coming to you. So is there a difference for a company like you, or does it remain same in terms of the the nuances of selling these transformative deals, since you've led some of these large transformative deals?
Thank you, Vivek, and the co-panelists Kalol and Nimesh. First of all, sorry for being late. I think some digital transformation needs to happen within myself first. I was having a tough time joining into the webinar. So while I learned the process, I don't know whether I am qualified enough to preach to the audience here, but I'll still, considering you've given me an opportunity, I'll give it a try. So I think as most of the panelists or my co-panelists named, it's probably one of the hardest things to change. And by definition, it's one of the most difficult things to transform, because you're really, while you're selling digital transformation, you're actually transforming yourself as sales. And it's not easy. If it was, then a lot of people would have done it. And it's rare that you get to people to see who can transform themselves, which means you're relevant for today as you'd be relevant for tomorrow. And the relevant for tomorrow is very different from today, especially in a digital world. And I think it's important for us to recognize that digital transformation, what does that mean? What does that mean for our customers? What are we trying to tell? This term gets used so often. What does it mean? So I think it's primarily transformation for a business perspective is absolutely changing the way your business processes work, the products get delivered, to a very different customer experience or very transformed customer. All of these things coming together make the transformation come true. It's not in the opposite to transformational change is incremental change, which we always do, right? You did this tomorrow as a bank. You have now opened multiple banks. You have a little bit of a digital interface to it. People can do online banking. Is not digital transformation. You had the same people. But then the bank says that now you don't need to come, but you can actually transform and do the transaction using from your home. And you probably don't even need to use cash, like, and you could probably do digital money transfer to do your payments. That's transformation. That's making change the complete experience that you could get as a consumer. Similar across industries, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's healthcare, and whether it is, and actually, frankly speaking, thanks to the pandemic, all of us experienced all the digital transformation that we would have imagined before, but it happened for us. Whether it was healthcare, where you could do remote, whether it was banking, whether you could do remote, whether you could do work remotely, and so forth, so forth. So from your question perspective, that what does it mean to TechM? It's absolutely different. For a Tech Mahindra to also go through this challenge as a large company in the system integration and IT services business, it's a very strong challenge. And I would be foolish to say that we have completed and achieved 100% success in that. We have our own struggles. We are going through the own process, and we are learning as we go along. But I can share some of the learning. The learnings primarily being get our people to understand the business. Number one. And you cannot do this unless and until you understand the business, because digital transformation is about transforming the business. It's not about cloud. It's not about AI. It's not about data sciences, because we mix those up. And I think that's the biggest challenge. So one way it's simpler, that you're no longer expected to, as a sales guy, to be the cloud expert or an AI expert or a data science expert. But on one hand, it is tough because now you need to understand your customer's business and where does he want to. The second question people tend to ask is, therefore, am I supposed to know more than my customer? No, that's a question that is completely dependent on you, because two things have changed in our world. And that's what we keep telling our leaders and sales leaders. One, your customer knows a lot more about technology today, thanks to the internet, right? And they read about the same things, so they know use cases of AI, etc., and data science. And you therefore should also know what's happening in the banking industry, the logistics industry, and therefore. So this requires a lot more research, time, understanding of what the business transformation that industry is going through. Where does your customers' parameters lie in that transformation? And therefore, when you pitch to them, you're going to tell them about how you take them from this A journey to a B journey. And that's the journey that's tough, but that's where the value is.
And like you rightly said, it's not just the context, but maybe also able to walk with your customer to help him see what future may look like. Because a lot of us hinged that how future would look like, and so you're sort of preparing for the transformation. Would that be right, Jagdish, if I say that?
Absolutely. It's a combination of not just how the future will look like, but how will you take him to that journey. That's the next part of that whole. Because a lot of people know that banks need to deploy manufacturing setups need to deploy digital twins for productivity. Banks need to deploy a digital bank expertise. People will talk out now terms of how metaverse can change the way they do business, etc., etc. But very few people are able to draw up the journey to enable them to believe that how will you take them there and what will it mean for them from a business outcome. Take, for example, technologies, right? We go and sell technologies earlier, AI, data science, 5G, right? But if I don't tell them, or if we are not able to tell them what will 5G do to your factory, and how will it improve your productivity, or how do you make sure that your product is going to be out into the market 20% earlier than what it did earlier, then you're not really delivering a transformational solution.
What appears to me, and when all of you are talking about it, this looks like extremely complex. The way the sellers would need to equip themselves, because this requires ability not just to influence at just the functional head level, but it also requires maybe the C level, maybe the board, and how do you then align so many stakeholders along with how do you help client organizations to articulate the impact in form of new revenue streams or losing the existing revenue streams? I mean, some of the services which clients may be charging for in the new world and the new journey, they may not be able to charge for. So my question to you is that what does an organization which wants to build this capability of selling the digital transformation deals could do to sort of succeed or make some positive progress in this direction? So maybe Nimesh, would you want to pick this up?
Yeah, very, very pertinent question. See, from a services company standpoint, this actually is a big boon in disguise. I can safely say that this actually, all of us, there's no secret that all of us live by growth in revenue plus growth in our EBITDA and margin, right? So when you are critically looking at all the services which you have been offering, which can be digitally enabled to transform clients' businesses, it actually gives you a very sweet broom in your hand to sweep away those services which are no longer relevant, which are no longer going to be relevant in the future, right? So the first answer is that, and that ability, of course, sits with the functional heads, but more so with the CXO, which you mentioned earlier, right? So the tail services, which are low margin, which are not really futuristic in nature, which is not going to drive the digital revenue or the right kind of revenue for the organization, they are slowly being sunsetted and they're slowly being taken out of the organization. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, if you recall what I said about 20 minutes back when I was answering your first question, the most relevant services for a WNS kind of organization or my esteemed panelists organizations are where we can drive the business outcomes of the client organization, right? That's the most relevant part. Because if you're touching the silos and just quote unquote digitally transforming some of the siloed part of the organization, client's organization, it's no good, because ultimately it becomes a zero-sum game, right? So effectively, you have to have a host of services from your side which are so relevant that they're able to go and touch the client's organization and digitally transform them holistically and give them a completely different business outcome, right? So that drives the right behavior in us as a services organization standpoint, and more importantly, that drives the right behavior from a sales perspective as well, because they see, not just because I'm a sales guy, hence I'm saying that I'm the smartest, but sales people are probably among the smartest people on the planet, right? The number of times they have had to adapt in the last 20 years or 25 years in terms of various interventions that have happened both externally and internally is humongous, right? So they also know what will get positioned with the organization. So Jagdish mentioned a very valid and important point, which in WNS we have implemented very strongly, which is domain knowledge and domain expertise. If somebody is selling banking, if somebody is selling shipping logistics, if somebody is selling manufacturing, unless you know how a manufacturing process works, unless you know the entire supply chain, unless you know the entire insurance process of claims and underwriting and things like those, you will not be able to tell the client how you will transform the claims organization of an insurance company, of a GI company, right? And hence it drives the right behavior. It helps us drive the right behavior from a C-suite perspective in terms of what we should change to drive a complete holistic a business outcome change for our clients.
Thanks, Nimesh. I think we have a question here, and maybe I'll go to Kalol on this. This question comes from Sumit. He says, how long would it take to organizations to shift 100% towards digital transformation before they start suffering financially or from the competitiveness in the market, considering where digital transformation stands today? So I think the question what he's asking is that, how long does this journey look like? I mean, I remember the 2000 year when Y2K was like a big thing and everyone said this is a big opportunity, and which it was for most of a lot of companies for. So how long does this opportunity hold for various organizations? Kalol?
Yeah.
Before Kalol jumps on to answering this question, on a lighter side, this change is going to be there forever. There's no end to it. But Kalol, you please take it up, because I was smiling when I read the question, such a relevant question, but there's no end date to it.
Yeah, true, Nimesh. And I was also, trying to decipher the timeline which Sumit is asking. So, what happened during the Y2K was we were trying to solve a specific problem, right? That all were all the machines and systems we built earlier to Y2K used to use two digits rather for the year, and which later had to undergo a transformation to four digits. And that was, again, that is for a limited period, because once the year 2000 comes in and goes, that opportunity is lost. You can't sell any more solution to do Y2K projects unless some customers have actually ignored it and trying to catch up later on. As far as digital transformation is concerned, we have seen that during the pandemic and during all these lockdowns which happened in the last 2 years, it has actually accelerated the entire process. And we have seen that, I would say that whatever selling or I would say the management of selling we are doing today has some sort of a link to some transformation which the customer is trying to bring in. And these are in various areas. And for us, digital transformation spans multiple things. It's like a security transformation. How do you build security grounds up instead of just patch on and add on to the existing things? Because cyber, as you go digital, cyber risks and cyber threats will become more prevalent. So we have to build the security grounds up. So security transformation is also part of our digital transformation portfolio. Then comes the story of application transformation, wherein, like Jagdish and Nimish said, that how do you transform the applications and the processes which the customers are running in various industries, and make sure that the entire transaction process can be done either online, from anywhere, anytime, right? You don't have to visit that particular organization for completing a transaction. A typical example is the UPI payments, which we are doing today. I don't carry, in Bangalore, I don't carry my wallet anywhere. I can just carry my phone, and everywhere, the transaction happens seamlessly across, whether I'm buying a nariyal pani at the corner store or anything of that. Even peanut sellers are actually accepting digital payments. So that has gone across the board. So, and the final one is infrastructure transformation. We call it, infrastructure transformation, because yes, all those applications which are coming, the new applications which are running, born in the cloud applications, it will not run effectively on old infrastructure. So as Dell Technologies, we provide those new infrastructure and new solutions which will make it happen. So as a seller within Dell Technologies, for example, I go and tell my customers that these are the areas where we can help, and tell us where do you want to start. Some customers say, yes, security is a big concern for us. So we bring in the security expert, define a solution strategy around security, and then go full throttle on that. If the customer is saying, I want to go to cloud, the public cloud, maybe the Amazons and the Googles of the world, we go and tell them that, why go full throttle on public cloud? You can actually keep something and make it hybrid, because the workplace is becoming hybrid. Some of us are going to office, some are not. Similarly, applications will reside some on the data center and some on public cloud. Wherever you need applications on public cloud, go ahead and do that. So to answer, and it's a long answer, I'm sure this is not going to stop, because this is the way forward, and this is how organizations will move forward. So if you are a seller, and if I am a seller, I would look at it as an opportunity for the next 10, 15 years. I don't know how long it's going to last, because once metaverse comes in and all the other associated things come in, you need to digitally transform everything else other than yourself, maybe. So it's going to be perpetual, as I would like to call it.
Thanks, Kalal, for the great answer. I think we have a lot of questions, and some of them are really related about how does one become successful. The questions like human is the biggest asset, and process technology need to get streamlined. but how do you overcome the mindset change? So I'm sort of wrapping it up into one question, saying that, do you see difference between people who are successful in selling transformative deals versus people who are not so successful transformative deals? So one of the things which came out clearly from Nimesh is that the people have to be domain experts, or the context they have to clearly understand far more than what they did earlier. So in fact, there's another question: does the sales guy need to be a domain expert, and is that the process? So Jagdish, what would be your view? Have you seen differences between people who have been successful here and people who are not so successful in selling transformative deals?
Yeah, I mean, there is always a difference between how people have approached it. But I would love to sort of comment on one of the comments that Nimesh made. Though myself also being in the sales side, I don't know how far it will, resonate if we turn around and say that the smart sales guys are the smartest people around. I would really be careful about making that statement. You do need smart people all across the organization and different sets of people, because the smartness I think you need in every aspect of it, and more others than we at the sales and the front end to make sure we are successful, because it does take a village. As far as people are concerned who do it, I think two sets of behavior, an inquisitiveness to learn and an inquisitiveness to get feedback is critical for any sales leader who are able to sell, or any leader across the board who are trying to do a transformational deal sales, because we don't know. The first job is to accept that you don't know, and you will draw up your baseline. And then second job is to not be shy of asking people about saying, where can I learn from this? How do I learn from it? I think one clear dimension I've seen about such sales leaders who have been successful or transformational sales leaders is people who are able to bring together expertise from across the organization, irrespective of age or experience. Most times in this world today, the people who are younger, who are new or digital natives, so-called to say, probably understand and think differently because they haven't gone through the legacy part of it. It's difficult for some of us to ask and accept that they may know more than us. That's the change that I see in a lot of people who are successful, that were ready to do it. And the most important part of it is, it's not that you did not have to prepare in the earlier world of selling other kind of deals. You have to prepare there, you have to prepare here. It's just that the preparation here needed is very, very different than what it was needed there. And therefore, your ability to read, understand, participate in the industry. So one question that you said was culture, and do sales guys need to be domain experts? No, I mean, I don't think so. But you can't be, to my view at least, you can't be a industry digital transformation sales expert across industry verticals. It's difficult unless you are 10 times really super smart who understands all industry and well enough. But there are some core fundamentals. What we did was in TechM, we broke it down into 6 themes, from strategy to customer experience to infrastructure to operations to multiple sets of delivery and technology that you would want to use. So we called out the 6 key themes in TechM and said that please understand what these themes do for your customer. And the second part of that was, now please understand what your customer's business is. No one else. We can give you with all sorts of research. We can provide you with all industry data. But if you don't do that discussion, you will look like a fool in front of your client. And you will end up saying, sir, how many IT resources can I provide? And that is the end of a digital transformation discussion. So you will learn to be, and the final one is, I think for each of the successful guys that I've seen are people who have gone through fair amount of failure. In the sense, first couple of pitches, first 3-4 pitches, they would have never got anything out of it, and ability to accept it and come back. So those would be really the characteristics, if you may, of people who are successful in transforming themselves as successful digital transformation sales guys.
Thanks, Jagdish. And just to ask you a bit more extended, a bit more, when organizations take such transformation exercise, they do see a lot of failures even the client organizations when I'm talking about. Do you think how critical would that be, and how do you manage such situations would be critical for a sales guy to, because you are the one who sold the vision, right? As if you be called it. And if things do not go so well, which at times may happen because you may have not calculated the various permutations and combinations of what may impact the complete ecosystem, the entire thing goes for a toss. So how do you see that of ability to manage such situations critical for a sales guy?
So I think no different, right? I mean, we are bound to, when we do new things, there is no guarantee for success. And I think what we look for in people, as well as customers look at people like us, is sincerity of approach and honesty. So if you are honest and sincere about the whole approach and keep the customer posted on what changes you're trying to do, and that you're doing a decent enough job of highlighting the risks and what you're trying to do with the mitigation, and in spite of that, things have gone wrong, please make sure that you are the one who's raising your hand to heart and saying you are ready to take the responsibility. And you sometimes the mistake is that we, in a very P&L driven, quarterly driven approach, we end up becoming protecting that line before we protect the customer's interest. We say that we are all doing this for the customer interest, but we very rarely at times actually implement it to it. Companies that implement it, are bound to be more successful in the long run. Listen, digital transformation is about long run. I think if the discussion starts to become that, how do I make sure that, long-term sales and short-term sales, how do I differentiate it? And should I focus on short-term versus long-term? Then we are making the wrong choice. There is no choice about that question. There's a question about only things that matter to people over the long term and benefit. If that means a slightly longer journey, I think we'll have to do it. There's no shortcut to it.
Thanks, Jagdish. And that actually gets me to the next question, and I'll go to Nimesh for it. So how do you then balance, Nimesh, short-term quotas versus your long-term objectives? I'm sure it's going to be really tough. In fact, there is another question. There are quite a few questions actually here. One of them is that while the cost of technology has gone really cheaper, why are businesses very slow in terms of adopting to this change? And another question is that how do small or medium companies can take advantage of it? So maybe I'll look at you in terms of providing answers to these three.
Yeah, sure. So organizations like us don't build a sales function, which is for here and now, right? So first of all, and there was one more question which you perhaps missed, which was very pertinent from a gentleman who asked, how do smaller services organizations adapt to this? So let me first address that, because that's a very relevant question. See, all of us were small to start at some point in time, right? And the only way you can stay relevant and become more relevant and continue to be relevant in your client ecosystem is by bringing in the right focus, having heavy domain knowledge and understanding, because gone are the days when the sales guy can just walk the corridor and talk, without any understanding of what a banking organization does or what an insurance. So with my experience, the kind of sales organization which we have built, is largely focused on domain, plus now, of course, coupled with digital transformation, but talking the customer's language. So when you have the right focus, how will the claims, as I gave the example earlier, how will the claims organization look like in a transformed state in 18 months from now, right? The client will have either a firm view, a vague view, or something which is neither here nor there. It is the sales guy's responsibility to draw the entire roadmap down to the basics of what a change management framework they will have to go. I'm not saying that the sales guy has to be a change management expert, right? But he has to bring about that knowledge and understanding for the client. There was one more question which somebody had asked about, why do all these digital transformation initiatives fail, right? And again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the round table. You have to, as a sales guy, you have to put this in the mind of the customer that if there is lack of change management strategy, how complex is your software and technology? How will you drive adoption of new tools and processes? How will you continuously evolve for your customers' need? And if there is any digital transformation strategy of your own or not, lack of proper IT skills, and of course security concerns. So all this becomes responsibility of a sales guy. In addition to again, 90% of them fail. To be very honest with you, 90% of them fail. That's the data from Forbes and that's data from Gartner. So it's not something which can be just dismissed. But still, you have to be relevant. So that answers the question in terms of what a small organization should do in terms of bringing in focus. Going back to what you asked about quotas and this, that, and other. See, we don't build sales organizations which are for here and now, right? It has to be, and especially in our industry, which is the BPM industry, the sales cycle is typically 12 to 18 months time, right? And we have structured a mechanism by which we support the sales ecosystem to go after large transformative deals, because where you have a seat on the table to help transform the client's organization and meet the business outcomes. For that, we don't have to worry. The sales guy don't have to worry about meeting their this quarter and this year quota and this, that, and other, because as long as the effort is there in terms of going after those large transformative deals, I have worked out a very nice structured mechanism, or we have worked out a very nice structured mechanism in terms of rewarding them, and that's the way to go.
Thanks, Nimish. Thanks for the answer. Kalol, there's a question which has come over from one of our guests, and he talks about that while you lead some of these transformation exercises, there are gaps between each department when you're sort of ensuring, because the entire transformation, the potential will only release when everything is seamless. However, in reality, when actually you execute it, there are gaps. And how do you manage the gaps? And which are some of them which should not be breached? So I think he meant that what are some of the outer limits which somebody needs to take care while driving some of these exercises?
Absolutely right that we have seen that there are gaps in digital adoptions between I would say between business units, between groups in an organization, and it does not permeate to each and every level within the organization itself. I think I would say the best method for this, and we have seen that in our interaction with customers, is we have to always go top down. So if the person who's in charge of that organization is aware of what's happening and how things are working between different groups, and bring in clarity as to what those costs are and how we can actually bring down the cost, it helps. So yes, there are gaps which we have seen. There are pseudo IT elements which get created because let's take, for example, and this is nothing to do with marketing or sales or whatever it is. Marketing wants to run a campaign, and they say that I need some provisioning of so many, virtual machines or whatever for this particular application, and IT is not able to provide immediately. They said it will take a week or so. So what happens is marketing goes to a public cloud, swipes the card, and gets that provisioning done on public cloud and runs the campaign. Now, such things are happening in every organization. You will have pseudo IT and pseudo cloud getting built, and nobody knows how much it's costing, because all those costs add up in the balance sheet at a later date. And we all know that there are ingress and egress charges associated with public cloud. So when you add up those costs, it is a significant number. So if we can show that at a CFO level or at a CXO level, I would say that this is where the gaps are, and this is how you are incurring cost. Then the organization takes a different viewpoint and makes sure that everyone actually follows the bandwagon of what the senior management or senior leadership team has decided. Having said that, we have seen that also that, this is becoming a phenomenal, there's a phenomenal shift, I would say, in the way people are thinking about adopting those digital transformation technologies and tools. While it is important that security is a big concern, and as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of our customers are looking at security transformation in a big way, the point to note here is, if we are talking end to end to this particular organization and meeting all the relevant stakeholders, we can close the gap. The second thing, as a seller, what everyone wants to achieve and what everyone wants to do is create champions within your accounts. And champions are not coaches, by the way. Coaches are actually telling the same thing to you, to your competition, and to everybody else. A champion is a person who you build trust and who you actually confide in what we can provide and what we cannot, and what will actually work and what will not work. So the champion will actually do the selling on your behalf when you are not around. That's the most important part of, I would say, building relationships in the new world is concerned. You have to have a champion within the account, and I would say, the earlier you have that champion engaged with all the activities, it's better for you, and then you can have a smooth ride in that account. Because we know today that, and as Jagdish and Nimish has rightly pointed out, the customer knows more about technology than all of us together as a seller. Don't assume that you know more than the customer. That's given. We don't know. So as a seller, what I can do is provide that information to the champion who will sell on my behalf. Because we have seen that the number of decision makers, and there was a question on decision maker, I think Akhil had asked earlier, how do we move through the hierarchy? I think the number of decision makers in selecting a solution has gone up from 5.4 to 12.5 now. So there are 12.5 people who are involved in the decision-making process for any large transformation deal, whether it's digital or security or whatever you call it. So you cannot manage this entire interaction of all the decision makers together. You need a champion who will actually bat for you when you're not around and will sell you. Because 3 questions everyone asks within the organization. For example, the question will be why this project is important. And if we delay it, what happens? Because the CFO has limited budget. What other projects are actually competing for that budget? That's the third one. And fourth is why, for example, Dell or WNS or Tech Mahindra in case of Jagdish's organization. So when these questions come up in their internal meetings, you need to have a champion who will bat for you during those sessions. And that is the most critical part to bridge the gap. And as I would call it, bridging the gap is important because most organizations take, I would say, different amount of time for different departments and business units to get the full story of digital transformation. So you need a champion. Coming back to one question which I would like to answer is, how do customers select, given that all the technology is similar? And if where is that question? I was just going through it.
Yeah, it's about differentiation, saying that almost everyone is selling a similar solution.
How do customers differentiate? I think most of our customers today, and I've seen that in a lot of organizations, are looking for those more than the champion playing for or the champion playing for you during when you're not there, is looking for what organization to organization value add we can bring in terms of sustainability, in terms of CSR activities. And every organization has a CSR plan and a CSR roadmap and a diversity plan and a diversity roadmap. If those can converge and make sense to both the organizations, we have seen a lot of differentiation is created. Though the product differentiations might be similar or very less, I would say these type of differences or these type of changes which is happening around us in terms of sustainability, in terms of what we are doing, like we have a moonshot goal of 2030, recovering ocean plastics and all that stuff, and creating as part of our products consumable electronics, or rather diffusible electronics or PCBs, which will diffuse once you put it in a particular solution or something like that. Now, when those things come up, it's very important to understand what the other organization is looking for from those goals. And if the goals match, then you have a perfect fit. And that is what we are trying to do as actually.
Thanks, Carol. So you're saying that value fit. So one thing is that in Rain Group language, we call it a domino. Domino is someone who sort of once creates, opinions about you internally, and he's the one who actually takes you ahead in the organization. The other point, I think, which I realized in conversations both you and Nimesh brought out, was that it's always about long-term play. So Jagdish, my next question is that what do some of our smaller or medium-term companies do to be able to be part of this ecosystem? Because what it looks like is that it's a very long-term play. It needs a huge amount of investments, which large organizations can make. So how do small and medium-term, or even startups for the matter, take advantage of some of these? Because they would not be able to compete with behemoths like you. So what can they do about it?
No, it's not true, Vivek. I think there are positives that we all have. The smaller companies have agility in their side, which typically large organizations have a difficulty to do. So I think from investment and from the scale and duration of the digital transformation projects, etc., you've got to choose, as they say, so let's take an example. Okay. Every digital transformation project, and let's say, for example, one of the big things in India that happened was smart cities, right? We had this whole smart city program, which is a digital transformation of how to reimagine the customer or the citizen's life in a city. And it included multiple parts of doing that discussion. It had discussions about all aspects of it or certain smaller aspects of it. Like, for example, a smart city would have traffic, could have garbage, could have movement of people, hybrid ways of working, all aspects of water management, etc., etc. All aspects of the smart city system in it. But if you are a small unit, you either partner with a large company, or in this case, take up a small piece of that transformation piece and say, I will transform this piece. So there are specialist units which say, okay, I am here to focus only on this piece, and that's what I'm good at. I think the smaller organizations are got to focus on specialization in their units, that they are probably smaller in unit, rather than trying to do the bigger team and then build it up. And similarly, maybe pick up one industry rather than trying to do others. So I'm very good at transport, or I'm very good at logistics. I'm just picking them up, and I will be able to prove that to you. I think that's the starting point, because the hockey stick of that, or the curve and the demand, can only happen once you prove that. And it, like most digital type of deals, there are not too many winners in every opportunity. You will end up having a few set. So only part of this is that probably my suggestion or recommendation is pick a smaller piece, but be the best at it. And your advantage is your speed and agility. Or be a partner of a collaborative ecosystem. People like us are constantly looking at partnerships and ecosystems to come together, because the one more realization is we don't have answers to everything.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jagdish. And I think, yes, so I think it's what again is getting reinforced, that you need to be expert at what you're sort of doing and be the best at it. And that's what, so size doesn't matter. And I think we have, through across various studies, we've seen size really doesn't matter in terms of what organizations are wanting to adopt and trying to help their clients to transform. Okay, I think we're almost about the time right now. I think one last question to all of you would be, what would you want to leave a message with our guests, that how can they, or top one or two things, what should they do to be successful in selling these digital transformation deals proactively? But before I come to that, I think there's a comment from Neeta who says many salespeople feel ill-equipped to collaborate throughout the entire client journey, and this is why a team approach is essential. Who do you feel should be the key people on the team, and what should be your ideal dream team look like? Very, very important question to succeed through any of these transformation journeys. Open to all of you. And I think we can close by saying that 2 or 3 things which you'll want our viewers to have it with them.
Let me just address that at a very high level. Nita's question. See, as you know, I kept on harping for the last hour and a half that the sales guy needs to understand the client's business, needs to understand, and again, going back to the previous example of insurance company, he needs, if he's selling claims transformation, then he needs to know what claims does and how he will transform the business. Obviously, a sales guy cannot be a solution guy. Obviously, a sales guy cannot be somebody who is a commercial guy, right? And the sales guy cannot be somebody who can write the contract and negotiate the contract. So at least at the very best, see the mistake which a lot of us do, and which I have driven very aggressively in my organization, is that I don't want the sales guy to just open the door and walk away, right? He has to be, or she has to be invested in the in the closure of the opportunity till the very end. So at a high level, he or she should be able to negotiate the contract as well. At a high level, he or she should be able to do the commercials as well. At a high level, he or she should be able to do the solutioning as well. So it has to be, he or she has to be rolled into all into one, because he or she is driving the entire opportunity. There's a huge responsibility on the sales guy, and I'll go back to, I know Jagdish commented on that, but I will go back to saying that they have to be the smartest of the smart. They have to be the leader of the pack. If they are not seen as the leader of the pack, and I've seen multiple opportunities in which the sales guy has dependent a lot more on others to help them sell, have failed miserably. Again, whether it is digital transformation or whether it is other deals, that's a reality of the situation. Sorry, I missed the other question which you asked, Vivek.
So I said, what would you want our viewers to have a couple of pointers to? I know we've all talked about digital transformation, but what are 2 things they should be doing to make this happen? In fact, there's another interesting question which somebody asked, that I have spent my life in operations roles on the tech side. How do I enter the opportunity of selling some of these as a consultant role for selling transformation, and how do I have an entry point into such ecosystem?
Yeah, look at your strengths. Look at what you are good at. Look at in operations what you have handled. There is a definite need for operations to be part of the sales ecosystem, and you can be, if you have the flair in you, and if you have the understanding of how do you quote unquote transform the client's organization in a particular area, have the right focus. And if you have it in you, you will definitely become a sales guy. But sales guy's life is not easy. Let me be very honest about this. Not that other functions are easy, but sales guy's life is a little bit different. So once you're ready to transform yourself, you can become a great sales guy. 2 points from my side before I sign off and let Jagdish and Kalol also comment on this. First of all, from it has been a pleasure. But first of all, from a sales perspective, the entire conversation which we had was how do we make sure that the sales process or the sales improvement happens to help sell large transformation deals. That can only happen by two ways. First of all, you have to transform yourself. I think Jagdish touched upon that very, very nicely. So first of all, you have to transform yourself in terms of being able to be sitting in front of a client and talking their language, right? And second of all, bring focus. You cannot be everything to everybody. You can never be everything to everybody, right? Even Accenture, even IBM, they cannot be everything to everybody. They are large. Infosys, nobody can be everything to everybody. So bring focus in terms of what you want to do best, and be the at least number 1, number 2 in that. So long you have that focus, you will succeed definitely.
Thanks, Nimesh. And just to add, because somebody what you're talking about, that someone has a flair, I think the operations guy actually know the best that what are the lacunas in the current process. And if I was to reimagine ground zero, how would it look like? So I would say you are the best one. Actually, you can reimagine it. And that's what, any organization needs a person like that today.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Jagdish, coming to you, what would be 2 things what you would want to leave our audience with, saying that how do you continue this success in this journey?
Well, I think focus on your client's business, try and reimagine with the help of an ecosystem. You talked about the team. So I think one of the good things that have started to work is creating small pods as a cross-section of a market and industry. So create those pods, which is a combination in your organization of markets and industry. That's manufacturing in America or banking in Europe. They tend to operate in that kind of an environment, and you would probably be able to challenge that with an ecosystem. That's number one. Number two, please focus on maybe one or two technologies that help you draw, because that's what the expectation from the client would be. You could choose whatever. You could choose data science, you could choose cloud, you could choose AI, you could choose quantum, you could choose metaverse, you could choose 5G. Just there are plenty of them. But please be clear as to how you will tell them how this will help him attain the transformation that he's looking for in business. So two things: industry expertise, focus on it, and two technologies that you want to pick on that you think will transform that business, enable transforming the business.
Thanks, Jagdish. I think quite powerful. I think I'll go to Kalol. Kalol, your last two words to the audience before we say goodbye to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vivek. And it's been a pleasure talking in this panel. And Jagdish and Nimish has been excellent in providing their inputs and experience from a different industry, which is different from where I come from. And that's why it's good to get some viewpoints from the other side. Having said that, what I have seen works is, and this is part of Nita's question also, is as an account manager, if I'm managing a set of accounts, I consider myself to be the general manager of that account from my company, right? And as a general manager, I should be able to collaborate better. So collaboration is key, I would say, as far as working on any project is concerned, because as everyone said, and Jagdish also said at the end, you cannot, and Nimish has also referred to it, you cannot be everything to everyone, right? And as a salesperson, it's not expected that I'll know everything associated with all products and all solutions which my company provides. For example, we have started as a service, right? Infrastructure as a service, PC as a service, data storage as a service, and so on. Now, I know how to sell storage, but I won't know how to sell it as a service. So what I have to do is I have to collaborate with my Dell Financial Services organization to see how the flex on demand will work. If I don't know flex on demand, I have to go and learn it, right? So collaboration will be very, very important for any salesperson. And that is a key trait you all have to develop. If you have it, well and good. If not, you have to take an effort to develop that. Coming back to what are the other things which are important and how we are going to differentiate, I think once we start collaborating and having that industry knowledge, be open to conversation, read about things which are happening around you, be informed about what's happening around the world in different areas, whether it's a vertical, whether it's a horizontal solution, doesn't matter. You have to know what's happening and be at least aware of what's happening. I'm not saying you have to be an expert, because that will initiate discussion at the customer side. You can't have a discussion just saying that, I've come to sell you this. You have to have some discussion as to what's happening in the industry, in their industry, in your customer's industry, what's happening around the world, and where are we seeing some of those converging, and what are the solutions we can provide. So I would say collaboration, the key thing, which is very, very important. And second thing is, forget about how you have sold in the past. You have to unlearn and learn new things and try to get equipped with how things work in the current world and learn in the flow of work. So there are companies who are deploying solutions where you don't have to get out of, say, Salesforce.com or Teams to learn about things. In fact, we have just deployed that solution in Dell Technologies, and I was working on those. It's called Learning in the Flow of Work. You actually learn while you're working on an opportunity in Salesforce, because the system will throw up things which are AI enabled, and you can actually quickly pick up. So those are things which organizations are doing, but as an individual, collaboration is key. And I would say that have a fair view of what's happening around you, because without that knowledge, without equipping yourself regarding what's happening, you can't be a good salesperson. Those are the two things I would say.
Thanks, Kolol. Great insights and a great example that how AI is getting used along with Salesforce to throw up questions on the deals or opportunities so that salespeople are best prepared. But however, don't wait for AI or you implement AI. I think as leaders, as managers, all of us can play that role, working with one of those opportunities and getting our sales teams far more prepared and collaborate better. So thank you, gentlemen. It has been lovely chatting up with you on this topic. Thank you for taking out time. I'm sure our viewers have really liked it. Thanks, viewers, to coming out on this roundtable once again, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.